Hi and welcome to Knitting Expat Podcast. This is episode 104 and today is Friday the 30th of June and my name is Mina and I'll be your host today. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. If you are new, thank you for checking me out. I hope you enjoy what you see, and if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate you guys coming back each week. So yes, like I was saying, today is Friday the 30th of June. This podcast probably won't go live until tomorrow and I'll explain why later. Tomorrow's the 1st of July. And so to everyone or to all my Canadian friends and viewers out there, happy Canada Day, July 1st. And in advance, I'll say this now because I'll probably forget at the end, is happy 4th of July to everyone who celebrates in the US and elsewhere for next week. So like I said, my name is Mina. You can find me online at a variety of places, Instagram and Ravelry being the main ones. And we have a group for this podcast. I have everything linked below this video on YouTube. We have a group for the podcast on Ravelry, which is the Knitting Expat Podcast. It's also linked below. And in the episode threads, there are also links to everywhere else that you can find me as well. And we have show notes, which are also linked below at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. It'd be good if I remembered that. Okay, yes, so that's that. Like I said, everything's linked below. If there's anything else, any other links and stuff will be down below. I also am a knitwear designer, so I sell my knitting patterns online on Ravelry as well, and that's also linked below for your viewing pleasure if you want to go and have a look, see what you like. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. So thank you again for joining me today, and thank you to everyone who introduces themselves in the introductions thread in the group as well. I really appreciate it. We also have a coupons code thread in our group, which if you're a maker of any kind and you want to provide a coupon code for the podcast, I have found that just announcing them on the podcast every time to be quite time consuming, and my podcasts are already quite long anyway. So I have a thread in the group where you can just post any coupons there, and if you're interested in finding a discount or finding new people, new makers in the community, then by all means check out that thread. There are lots of fun things happening there, and I'm pretty sure there are a few active coupons at the moment as well. Okay, so we're going to jump right in with finished objects, and this is why the podcast isn't going to go up until tomorrow, because tomorrow is the release of the next pattern for the New York Sock Collection Pattern Club, which if you're a previous viewer you will know about that, and if you are new, this is a collection of patterns that I've created based around the theme of New York City. And we have a knit-along going for it as well, 2 knit-alongs actually. And basically it's like a pattern club, so each month I release a new pattern. If you've purchased the ebook or the pattern club, then you will get that new pattern each month. So the July's pattern will be coming out tomorrow, and I thought I would show you the pattern now since I'm filming it the day before and I won't be publishing this until tomorrow. So this is the pattern for next month. Oh geez, it's been blown out quite severely. There we go, that's better. And these are going to be the Yorkville socks. And Yorkville because it's the name of the area where I live, and I find these socks were really comfy, cozy knit, kind of remind me of home, being at home, really cozy. It's comfy and cozy to knit and to wear. It's a really simple, fun, it's a really simple texture. It's nothing complicated. It's great for mindless knitting that's a little bit more involved than plain stockinette. The repeat is very easily memorizable. It's very easy to see where you are in the pattern repeat when you're looking at your work, and for that reason it kind of reminds me of the kind of knitting you're doing from the TV or when you're having a conversation with someone at home, and just cozy. And so I thought, what better to name it after than the area where we live, which is Yorkville. And yeah, and the yarn is by Primrose Yarn Company. This is on her Cosmic Helix base, and this is 100% superwash merino, and I've talked about this in the past a lot. I have no concerns with knitting socks out of 100% merino yarn. I am not particularly tough on my socks, I don't think, and I've knit my husband 100% merino socks before, and he still wears them, and I wash them in the washing machine, and he wears them in his work shoes. He wears them to work all the time. They've worn pretty well. What I might do in the future is I might just do a segment on an episode where I talk about how my socks have worn, if you guys are interested in hearing about that, and how Perry's socks have worn, because he only has 6 pairs of socks, so his go, he wears his pretty frequently, like they go through quick rotation. So yeah, if you're interested in that, let me know. I also did a garter heel on this one. So The heel that's in the pattern is the exact same, you just knit every row instead of purling the wrong side rows. And that's explained in the pattern as well. There's a note about that in there if you want to do that. It's the same instructions, you just knit instead of purl where the instructions tell you to. So yeah, I hope you will enjoy this month's pattern as well. Everyone seems to be really enjoying them, and I really love seeing everyone's progress on Instagram and in the Ravelry group and in the threads. And if you want to take part, so it's not too late to join in. The knit along will be running until, both knit alongs will be running until the end of November. The last pattern will be released at the beginning of September, so that gives you guys an extra few months to finish everything off before the knit alongs end, because I know not everyone has time or is able to, for whatever reason, to knit a pair of socks each month. Life gets in the way sometimes, so yeah, that's why the knit alongs are running a little bit longer, to give you guys a bit more chance. So if you want to, you're more than welcome to jump in right now. We have monthly prize drawings as well as a grand prize finished objects thread for the end of the year. And for that one, you have to have knit all the socks in the club to be eligible for the grand prize. But for the monthly one, it's whichever socks. It doesn't have to be that month's socks, it can be a previous month's design as well. Whatever's been entered in a month in the monthly finished objects thread, then that will be what is entered. And on a note about the grand prize thread, I went through that the other day and I deleted all of the duplicate posts. So you're only supposed to have one post in that thread, and you're supposed to update that with photos of each finished pair of socks until you've got all 7 designs in there. Some people have been posting a separate post for every finished object, so I've literally gone through and I've deleted all the posts from anyone who has done that. And if you were one of those people, you can go back and check, and you can post again, but make sure you post all your finished objects in one thread, in one post, I mean, rather than posting each sock individually in that thread. If you do that, I will delete them and those posts won't count. The rules are very clear for that, so I've, like I said, I've gone through and I've deleted all the ones that aren't eligible or haven't been complying with the rules. So please make sure you do that correctly. The rules are very clear at the beginning of the post, of that thread in the first post, so make sure you read that. So that was that. That was an old finished object. I finished that earlier this year, but obviously I couldn't show it to you. Then the second finished object, I also can't show you at the moment, but there's a good reason for that. Now, if you are aware, I'm not sure, of O-Loops yarn, and O-Loops, the brand in general, every year they host a Harry Potter cal at I think it's September to November, I believe it is. And Lydia, who's the dyer behind O-Loops yarn, this year she decided she asked me if I'd be interested in designing the patterns to go along with the kits that she creates for the knit along. And I was absolutely delighted to be asked, and of course I jumped at the chance. I thought that would be a really fun opportunity to work with her, and I really love O-Loops yarn as well. I've worked with them before. I've knit with her yarn before, I mean, and yeah, so the first pattern, I've kind of got an idea for 3 patterns at the moment, so we'll see how many I get finished in time and written up and everything. I think my aim is to have 2 at least, and hopefully a 3rd one as well to send to her to use for the kits. So the first one I knit out of this yarn. So this is on her Perfection knot base, which is a 75-25 superwash merino 25% nylon, 463 yards and 100 grams, and this is in the Star-Crossed Lovers colourway. And this actually came with a corresponding 50-gram skein of a black yarn for contrasting heels, toes and cuffs, but I didn't use this for a pair of socks. I used this for a different design, which I'm going to give away what the design was. I'll keep that as a surprise. But this is the yarn I used. This is how much is left. So I finished this one a couple of days ago, and it's actually still a bit damp. It's over blocking by the window behind the camera. So that's the first one down. The second one I'll be showing you soon as a work in progress. Don't worry, I won't be giving any details away. And the third one I haven't even cast on yet. So actually I've just cast it on, I haven't done anything with it yet. So that was that one, and I knit, I'm not going to give any details. I'll leave that one as a surprise. Move these out of the way. The third finished object that I have to show, and I actually can show you this one properly, is another pair of socks, not another, a pair of socks. This is a pair of socks I've knit for my dad, and they're going to go into like a gift pile. I'm hoping to knit a few pairs of socks for everyone in my family for later this year to give as Christmas presents. So this is Regia Design line. It's one of the Ani and Carlos lines. I can't remember which run this was, if this was the 2nd or 3rd line. I think it was the 3rd. But it's colour number 3762. And this is what they look like. I literally finished these last night before going to bed, so they haven't even been blocked yet. I haven't even bothered putting them on blockers right now. I probably should have grabbed them before I sat down, but I only just put the baby to bed, so I wanted to get cracking. And this is what they look like. And again, I did a garter heel. I'm really sort of obsessed with the garter heel right now. It goes, the German short row heel is a quick heel to knit anyway, and doing it all in garter stitch just makes it that much quicker because you're not purling. And at the moment, I prefer it, and I really like the way it looks. It gives a slightly different textural contrast to the rest of a plain vanilla sock. So that's those. It's a nice long pair of socks. My dad likes his socks pretty long. I think I have about 10 grams of yarn left over, so I used most of the ball. I think I did about 80 rows of a leg, 20 row calf, 80 row leg, and then I did a 70 row foot, I believe, and my rounded toe, which is in all of my patterns as an option. So that's my third finished object, and this is actually the only pair of socks I've finished this month. I think that's probably the least amount of socks I've ever finished in a month is, well, since I very first started, probably is about one. So yeah, that's that. I'm going to take a quick break to grab a drink, and I'll be back in a second. Back now with works in progress. I have quite a few works in progress at the moment. A couple have kind of gone onto the back burner because I had a few of these O-loops designs that I wanted to get done as soon as possible. At least I wanted to get them underway as soon as possible, because I have a deadline for those, and those need to get done quickly. So I will go over my previous works in progress that I've shown you before first. So the pinwheel scrap blanket, which is a design of mine that you can get on Ravelry, is for another option for you guys to knit a scrappy blanket if you didn't want to do the mitered squares, or you do a crochet blanket. That's another option. I'm still working on another block. I didn't grab it out, it's under the stroller. It is my stroller knitting, as I put it, when I'm out and about with Layla, if she's taking a nap and I've sat down waiting for her to wake up, or if we're on the subway or something, then I've got something to do while she's just hanging out in her stroller. And so I haven't made much progress on that. I'm still working on a block that I hadn't started yet the last time I talked to you. Then next up we have the Salmon cardigan, which is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. I'm knitting this on 3.5mm needles, or US size 4s, and I'm using yarn. The yarn is Verdant Griffin on their Little Traveller base, and this is in the Mossman colorway. So it's their light fingering, which is a slightly thinner yarn than the pattern calls for. The pattern just calls for regular fingering weight. So my gauge is slightly off, but I'm knitting the side up, and I've done the maths, and it should give me the right size that I'm looking for. And this is the tag, all the information. So it's 100% superwash merino, and I just picked up and started the sleeve. I had hoped to have the sleeve finished by the time I talked to you guys today, but like I said, this, along with a few other projects, well, one other project, has kind of gone onto the back burner for now. So I've only literally just started the sleeve, and I use progress keepers to mark my decreases to keep track of where I am. So that's basically all I've done so far since the last time I talked to you. But that's fine. Like I said, if I hadn't had these other designs to work on, I probably would have finished this by now. But since this isn't a design, and it's not likely that I'm going to be needing it anytime soon, there's no real rush to get this one finished. I personally don't like to leave sweaters on needles for too long, just because I know I'll get bored of it. But this one's actually a really entertaining knit. It's not too boring, it's not plain stockinette, there's always something going on, there's a texture pattern to it. So I don't think I'm going to get bored of it, and I really enjoy working with the yarn as well. I'm really enjoying it. And so taking a break for probably another week on that one, and hopefully then I'll be able to pick it back up and get going on it. So that was the Salmon cardigan by Joji Locatelli. Then next up we have the Cusco Sweater, which is a kit from We Are Knitters, which I talked to you guys about in the last podcast. It's and I'm also hosting a giveaway with We Are Knitters on the Ravelry, on my Ravelry group. The thread for that is going to stay open until I finish the sweater. That's what I said last time, and that's where I'm going to stand with. And I've made quite a bit of progress on this one since the last time I showed it to you, and I'll show you in a second. So I'm actually knitting these on straights. These are the needles that We Are Knitters sent me. They're 5mm US 8s. I haven't knit a sweater on straight needles in a since I first started, and I wanted to give it a go. And also because it's knit on straights, it's a seamed sweater, which I don't think I've ever done, or at least I haven't done since I started. I think I've done a seamed garment twice before, in the very early days when I started, so it's been a while. And I wanted to give that a go. I thought it'd be a fun challenge. The sweater itself is a really simple knit. It's a garter stitch sweater, but the construction I thought would give me a bit of a challenge by doing it seamed and knitting it flat and using straights and things like that. I thought would be interesting. So this is the little pattern pamphlet that comes with it. All the instructions are inside. It's very simple, again, perfect knitting for when you have a baby to look after and you don't have a ton of time. So where I'm at is I've finished the second piece. So this will be either the front or the back piece, and I've got two identical pieces. If I can find it, there we go. So last time I showed it to you, I was very close to finishing one of these sides, and now I have both sides finished. I haven't blocked it yet. I'm going to wait until I have all my pieces finished, and then I will block it. What I'm thinking of doing is blocking the pieces individually and then seaming them together. I think that seems like the most appropriate way of doing it. So this is what the top is going to look like. And I'll pick up stitches and do the neckband once I start seaming, which will be interesting to do. So there we go, that's where we're at with that so far. So I've actually taken a bit of a hiatus on this one as well. I finished the first piece and the second piece pretty quickly after I last recorded. So this kind of went on the back burner for a little while, but I'll probably pick it up again over this weekend. It'll be nice sort of evening TV knitting, and I don't want anything too complicated to work on. Then the next project I have to show you is my scrappy granny stripe blanket. Again, I have worked on this quite a bit since the last time I talked to you, but for now it is taking a bit of a break. I need to wind up some more mini skeins, and so that's kind of been what's stopping me from working on it. That, and like I said, these design projects that I'm working on. But I made quite a decent dent in it. This is what it's currently looking like. Ta-da! It's big, it's rainbowy, and it's very neat. I like it. And so this marker shows you where I was last time, and so I've done all of this since then. These last few rows here are all from a mini skein set from Lavender Loon, and this is her Call the Midwives mini skein set, which I thought was really fun because I was actually watching Call the Midwife at the time whilst I was crocheting these. So which is it's a really lovely TV series, but oh geez, is it emotional. A lot of tears from me, I mean. But yeah, it was really fun to knit on the crochet with this yarn whilst watching that TV show. So yeah, that's that. And again, like I said, this is on hiatus now until I get a chance to wind up some more minis. But this again is another one of those projects that is great for working on when you don't want to have to really think about much. The only time you have to really pay attention to this is when you get to the end of a row to make sure you do the right number of double crochets. Double crochet or half double crochet? I think it's a double crochet. I can't remember the term of what I'm doing. I'm following a pattern by Attic24. I'm using her tutorial as a guide essentially for it. So you can just look up Attic24 granny stripe blanket on Google and it will pop up. And the last work in progress I have to show you is I left it on the sofa. Back in a second. Back again. Grab the project guide. That's the one I wanted to show you. So this is another Harry Potter project. Yeah, pattern. That's the word for the Olive cow. And this is being knit on the Buckman base. It's 100% BFL in the Mr. Rumpel colourway. These aren't the Harry Potter colourways that are going to be in the kits or anything, so don't worry, there's no spoilers in terms of the colourways. And this is what the back of the sock looks like. So this is going to be a pair of socks, there's no hiding that fact there. But I'm not going to show you the front because that's where the pattern is. And yeah, so that's how the colourway knits up. It's really fun, sort of light bright green. So this one is about just under 1 pattern repeat away from the heel, and this one is a few pattern repeats away. So it's a really fun, again, another simple pattern to follow. It's quickly memorizable and easy to see where you are if you can read your knitting. So hopefully that'll be one that knitters will enjoy. So that's the last work in progress I have to show you for now. The next one, which is another Harry Potter design, but this one I haven't really started it. I've only just done the cast on. That is it. It is just a provisional cast on that I did. So I just wanted to show you the yarn because it's part of the acquisitions segment, which is coming up next. And it seems like a good segue. So this is again on the Perfection Knot base in the Storm Clouds colourway from Oloops, and this is the third pattern that I'm hoping to get done in time to send to Lydia for the kits. It's really lovely shades of blue, which is really fun. So this will hopefully look really great in the pattern. So that's that. And yeah, so next up we have acquisitions. And so since I was talking about Oloops yarn, I'll continue with that. Lydia also sent me a few other skeins. She sent me a selection to choose from to see which would work for the patterns I had in mind. So these are some extras that she sent, which I have other plans for, but not immediately. So the first one is on her Bimini Twist base. So this is 100% superwash merino in the Blackberry Brandy colourway. It's this beautiful, rich tonal purple. And then there's the next two are, no, the next one is on her, again, Perfection Knot base, which is the 75-25 merino nylon, and this is in the Eeyore colourway. Beautiful, like lightly speckled purples. And the last one is on her Fashion Knot base, which is a superwash merino nylon and stellina base, and this is on the Lady Amalthea colourway. It's being blown out a bit there. That's better. You see the colours. I'm not sure if you can see the stellina sparkle in that or not, but it does have quite a sparkle to it. And so I actually think these three go really well together. So this might be a 3-colour project at some point in the future. And then talking about design collaborations, I am working with the lovely Kelsey from Primrose Yarn Co. We're actually collaborating on a few designs at the moment, but the first one to come out is actually the one that she's currently sent me yarn for. So the project that I sneak peeked on Instagram a while ago, which was all rolled up in, so using a bunch of different colours, that was my first attempt at the design to see how it worked and what it looked like, and I actually really liked how it turned out. So I had a chat with Kelsey about it, and she sent me some yarn to knit up the main sample for the pattern. So the yarn she sent me is on her Adelaide singles base. And get all the skeins in the shot. And this pattern, I previously talked about how it was super customizable and how I was going to write the instructions in a way so that you can adapt it to do it whatever size you want. Now that is true, but I sat down, I started writing it up, and I realized trying to explain the maths behind how the maths is really simple, but the explanation of it was going to make it sound really complicated, and I didn't want it to be a really wordy pattern to make it really complicated to follow and understand and work through. So what I've done is instead, at the moment it has 4 different size options that I put in. I was going to just have one size in there and give you the maths to be able to figure it out for yourself. But what I've done instead is I'm going to be providing you with a variety of different size options to choose from, and that way hopefully that will be enough flexibility in terms of both number of skeins that you need. So there'll be everything from a 4 skein option up to an 8 skein option, so you have plenty of scope to use as much or as little yarn as you want to get whatever size and style of scarf, shawl, wrap you want as well. So there's that. Hopefully that will be enough variety for you guys. Like I said, I'm trying to cover as many combinations and variations on the design as possible. And if you are fine with maths and you can figure it out, then again, if you have the pattern in front of you, you should be able to figure out how to adjust to make it wider or longer or however else you want to do it. So moving back to the yarn. So these are the yarns that Kelsey sent me, and I shared a picture of this on Instagram last week, or earlier this week rather. So this is what they look like, and I'll run you through them quickly one by one. So like I said, these are on her Adelaide singles base, which is 100% superwash merino single ply, 435 yards and 115 grams. So this first one is being blown out. This is her succulents colorway, so it's a really lovely sort of pale minty green tonal. Then next up we have Pisces, which again has the same sort of minty green in it, but with these speckles of purple. And then we have Skinny Dipping. And next up we have Forbidden Forest, and this is one of my favourites. I really love the colours in this one. The speckles are just getting more intense. And then we have Charcoal and Glitter, which again is a really fun, lovely colourway. Neutral with pops of colour in it, which I really like, those purples and sort of rusty reds. Then we move on to Salem. Again, purples with greens and little hints of pink in there as well. And finally we finish with Morticia, which is a lovely rich sort of purple to black sort of tonal colourway. So that's the plan. Be a really fun set of colours for hopefully a really fun pattern. It's going to be a perfect sort of fall, autumn, winter design, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. The idea is at the moment that I think we're going to be the pattern's going to be released towards the middle of August is the plan. So stay tuned for little sneak peeks here and there on Instagram as I start knitting it up. I just need to wind all the yarn. And yes, and next thing I want to talk about, I was contacted by the lovely people behind Yarn Crush, which is another yarn subscription service, yarn pattern subscription service, to see if I wanted to review a couple of their boxes, packages, to review on the podcast. But what I'm going to do it like I do with the Knit Crate videos, and I'm going to do a separate review video for you guys. That way if you're interested in it, you can watch it, and if you're not interested, you don't have to watch it as part of the podcast. It is totally your choice. They actually sent me 2 packages to check out. One is May and one is June's subscription. So you can check out that video separately, and I will be hosting a giveaway for one of the packages as well on that video. So make sure you tune into that. I'm hopefully going to record that after I finish recording this podcast, but I'm not entirely sure which one will be going up first. So make sure you check out the channel for that. Then I was contacted by the lovely Charisse from Colour Craze Fibre, and she wanted to send me a couple of things to play with, and also to give away on the podcast for you guys. So I believe she's a relatively new dyer. She has a website on, she sells on Etsy, which I'll have a link to in the show notes for you guys. And she sent me a couple of skeins and some fibre to play with, which I thought was really fun. So let me just open this up really quickly. So these are the 2 skeins that she sent me. They don't have any colourway names, but look at those colours. Those are so beautiful, so vibrant, totally my my jam, as it were. Totally my colours. I love how these have been done. So this one is on 100% superwash merino base, 410 yards and 100 grams. Really, really lovely sort of purples, sort of those rusty oranges, the tealy blues, basically all the colours that I love in this. Absolutely love it. And this one is on her merino cashmere nylon base, so 80-10-10 MCN. And again, really beautiful sort of rainbow colours, purples, blues, greens, oranges, and some flashes of pink in there as well. This is like everything in it. And one of these is going to be for a giveaway. I'm probably going to give away the MCN skein because it is slightly more luxurious, and that's always fun for a giveaway. And so yeah, stay tuned for a giveaway soon. That'll probably be a prize in one of the cows we have going. She also sent me this adorable skein of fibre. This is I believe this is 100% merino. I took out the tag earlier to check it. And again, all these beautiful colours. And I haven't done any spinning in quite a while, actually, since last summer. Or last autumn, actually, was when I last spun. I do still have the hand spinner that I had. But I haven't had a chance to do much spinning lately because with Layla it's not all that practical to do spinning. but hopefully I'll get back to it again soon and I'll enjoy playing with this. And a couple more quick things to show you. I went to Knitting City last week, was it? Was it last week already? Oh no, it was the week before, so it was the day I podcasted last time. I went to Knitting City afterwards to meet up with Eric, and I took Layla with me, and I also picked up the second issue of Rib magazine, which is super fun. There are definitely a few things in here that I'd be interested in knitting, especially I actually really like the pullover on the front, the Navigate sweater or pullover. That's really fun, sort of cabled pattern. Definitely one I'd be interested in knitting at some point. For, I don't know, I might knit it for my brother. It looks like something that he would wear, and I know he'd appreciate it. So potentially something for the future. Clear some space on this on the table around me. There's a ridiculous amount of stuff here. And the last two things I have to show you are some gifts that were sent for Layla, actually. So sorry, I've just got the baby monitor here, so making sure she's okay. Yeah, no, she's okay. So like I said, some gifts for Layla from lovely viewers of the podcast. First up, I had a lovely viewer who had knit a few things for Layla that she wanted to send, and along with the knitting, she sent two sets of booties, like little moccasin type booties, and one of them she's even hand embroidered some little flowers on it, which is so pretty and really adorable. So thank you very much for those. I don't know if she wants her name mentioned on the podcast, so I'm not going to mention it, but those little beauties will be really adorable once she starts to move around a bit more. She's crying a little bit, but she's still looking like she's going to go to sleep, so I'm going to leave her for a little bit longer. She also sent a few things for her. There's a shawl in here, there's an adorable little sort of shrug cardigan, and a full-on cardigan with buttons and everything. So these are lovely, far too big for her to wear anytime soon, probably suitable for winter next year when she's about 1 or maybe even a bit older. I'm not sure what age size these were knit for, but I'm sure she'll get wear out of them eventually when she fits into them. And the last thing that was sent for Layla is actually from one of my test knitters. This is from, I believe her Instagram handle is Ravelry Knits. Ravelry Knits. Shauna Knits. Let me just double check the note. Yeah, Shauna Knits on Instagram. She was one of my test knitters for the Sweet Pea dress, and she sent the one that she did for Layla to wear. And she did she just did a contrasting bind off on the sleeve instead of the picot bind off. But it still looks really fun, and this is the 6 to 12 month size, so it's going to be a perfect size for her to wear this coming autumn winter. And she gave me the details on the yarns in this. So the grey is by Sheepyshire on Etsy, and it's the ash colourway. The pink is Wolf Fiend on Etsy as well. It's the Nymph Fedora colourway, and the buttons are handcrafted by Wildflower Button Studio on Etsy. It's a really fun set of buttons there. Yep, just as I expected, she fell back asleep. She's been doing this for the last couple of days. She wakes up about half an hour or so into her lunch nap, and then after about 10 minutes of rolling around and a couple of cries, she goes back to sleep. So there we go. So that's really lovely and beautiful shades of pinks and purples in there. So again, looking forward to trying that on her once it's a bit cooler. It's so warm right now, and I feel bad making her wear wool at the moment. So thank you so much for that, Shauna. And that sums it up for the acquisition segment. I actually have one other acquisition to show you, but it's not my acquisition. It is for a friend of mine who I will talk more about that later. I have a segment further on in this podcast, which I probably should have mentioned at the beginning, but clearly my head wasn't screwed on. But I posted on Instagram this last week as well about winding yarn and about leaving yarn in the cake, and I've had questions about that before, so I'm going to answer that, go back to that topic later in the podcast, and show you some of the differences between how winding yarn what sort of differences winding yarn can make, and how you what sort of differences you can get from the different ways of winding yarn. Jeez, okay, there we go. Words are difficult today apparently. So moving on to knit-alongs and giveaways, I have to make one big apology to start with. All the prizes that I announced last time in the separate prize drawing video, I want to apologise to everyone. I haven't had a chance to post them out yet. I packaged them all up last night. They're sat on the sofa at the very back of the hall there, waiting to go to the post office. So either I'll either get to that later this afternoon or sometime during this next week at some point. Hopefully I will get to the post office to get those off to you. I'm so sorry they're so delayed. It's just been a little bit difficult at the moment to get to the post office, even though it's not that far away. But I will get there. And on that note of prizes, so the current month's knit along for the monthly prize drawing for the New York Sock Collection Pattern Club, it finishes today. But obviously I don't want to draw the prizes early because you guys still have the rest of today, the 30th of June, to enter your prizes. So I'm not drawing prizes, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to show you what the prizes are going to be, because I realised I haven't done that yet. So the prizes we have a project bag and a lotion bar from Wild Woolly, from the Wild Woolly shop, and I realised I totally forgot to put a link in the show notes for this shop last week, so I will definitely include a link this time round. So it's this cute little kitty cat project bag and a lemongrass citronelle solid lotion bar, which are all made, all handmade by her. So there we go, that's the first prize. Sorry if I'm a little bit distracted, I keep checking the monitor to make sure she's sleeping okay. She's definitely asleep now, so hopefully less distracted. Then we have a skein of this highlighter pink yarn, which has been majorly blown out. I mean, it is bright, but not quite that, but there we go, that's better. And this highlighter pink yarn with shots of blue and purple in there. And this is from Crafty Cassie, Crafty Cassie, who sent me a couple of skeins, one to give away, one to knit with. So thank you so much for that donation, and this is one of the prizes. And this is a sock yarn. I believe this is a 75-25 blend. There's no tag with it with this yarn, I'm afraid, but I'm pretty sure it's a superwash merino nylon blend of some kind. And the last prize is going to be this skein of yarn from Dibadoo, and it's in the Funnies colorway. This is a German yarn, and this is, yeah, like I said, in the Funnies colorway, and this is a 100-gram merino sock, 75% wool, 25% polyamide, 425 meters in 100 grams. And it's this fun, quite autumnal colorways actually, colors in this, like sort of dark burgundy reds, sort of like tea leaf green, and it's like deep orangey color, and there's some shots of purple in there as well. It's a really lovely blend of colors, and there's this really nice sort of like foresty green color in here as well. And I really like this skein, but it needs to go to a new home, and it is going to be a prize for this month. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Like I said, you have until the end of today, which is a bit useless in me saying this because this isn't going to be posted until tomorrow. So by the time I post this, it will be but entries will have finished for that. Oh geez, got to sneeze. Hopefully that won't happen. Okay, managed to avoid the sneezing. Like I mentioned earlier, we have the giveaway for the We Are Knitters kit on the Ravelry group, and I forgot to mention earlier, but the kit we're giving away is another Cusco Sweater kit or the classic sweater kit. Now the Cusco Sweater kit, I realised I didn't say this at all at the time, is knit out of 100% baby alpaca yarn, and I know some people have issues with alpaca. Either they have sensitivities to it, they don't like knitting with it, they don't like using it for garments, whatever reasons. Not everyone wants to work with alpaca. So the people I talked to at We Are Knitters, they are happy to substitute either the Cusco sweater or the classic sweater. And the classic sweater is essentially the same sweater as the Cusco, but knit out of wool. So you can either get a wool option or alpaca, and that'll be the winner's choice. And you can pick from the colours they have available in whatever size you need. So the prompt in the thread is, what do you enjoy most about garment knitting if you knit garments? And if you haven't knit a garment before, why do you want to try garment knitting? because the kit is for a garment. So yeah, hop on over to that thread and let me know. Like I said earlier, the thread will be open until I finish the sweater, so you have probably at least a couple more weeks to enter. Alright, so I mentioned earlier about winding yarn. I get a lot of questions from people, and I have in the past gotten questions from people about, is it safe to leave your yarn in a cake for a long period of time? Like, if you cake up some yarn that you plan on using, but then for whatever reason you don't cast on that project, or you use a different yarn and that yarn stays in the cake. Now, generally speaking, the advice is that if you're not going to use the yarn straight away, you should skein it back up and into a skein like this, so the yarn is more relaxed and not as tight as it is when it is in a cake, to prevent overstretching of the fibers. So what can happen is when you wind up yarn from a skein using a swift and ball winder, is the tension of the yarn coming from the swift can be quite a lot, which can create quite a dense cake where the yarn has been stretched quite a bit. And what that can do over time is the stretch in the yarn will stay. So then when you knit up your garment from a cake that's quite tightly wound, and then you block it, that could affect the finish of the garment. Now, I don't know how drastic that effect is. I've never really had that as an issue for myself. But there again, I've never really left yarn in a cake for more than a couple of months before. So I'm not entirely sure how much of an issue that really is, but that is generally the advice. What they advise you to do, what advice that I've heard anyway, if your yarn has been in a cake for a long time, what you should do is skein it back up into a skein, soak it, let it relax, and by soaking it, you're letting the wool sort of like bounce back into its original state, as it were, rather than its stretched state, and then winding it up and using it again. And that's quite a labor-intensive process to have to do if you have a lot of yarn wound up into cakes that you aren't using straight away. So, but another option that you can do, and this isn't one that I've heard too many people talk about, but this is actually generally quite good advice in general to do, is to wind your yarn a second time. So once you've wound it up into a cake, wind it again into another cake from the first cake, but with a lot less tension. So what that does is that means the yarn isn't as pulled tight, there's a lot more air between the yarn, so it's not as dense a cake, and I'll show you in a second some examples. And what that means is, because the yarn isn't under tension, there shouldn't be as much of that distortion if you're not knitting with the yarn straight away. It's also a good idea to do that because it reduces the risk of yarn bath. So have you ever pulled yarn from the center of a cake and then suddenly a big bunch of yarn comes out and a big tangled mess? That happens because there's a lot of tension on the yarn, and as you're pulling yarn out, you're releasing some of that tension, and that's why cakes collapse in on themselves after a while. So what can happen is a big bunch of yarn comes out at a time if it's ever so slightly tangled on the inside, and that can create yarn bath. But if you've wound it up a second time, that rarely ever happens. Like, I've never had it happen on a cake that I've wound twice, but it happens all the time on a cake where I've only wound it the one time. Obviously, winding yarn a second time is still a lot of work to do, but it's a lot less labor intensive than having to reskein your yarn, soak it, dry it, and then wind it up again. Winding it twice is definitely a quicker way to do it. So I have an example here to show you. So this is some yarn from Primrose Yarn Company. This is on her Jasper DK base. I may as well tell you about the yarn, I'm now showing it to you, in her Nasty Unicorn colorway. This is for a design that I'm planning on doing later this year, but I wanted to wind the yarn up now. And but like I said, because I'm not going to be casting on straight away, I didn't want to leave it. This is the cake wound up once, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's quite dense. It feels dense when you're holding it. It doesn't feel particularly squishy. And the yarn in the cake is under quite a bit of strain. And you can see this is quite a bouncy yarn. It does have quite a bit of stretch to it. So when it's under a lot of strain, it stays in that sort of stretched state for a long period of time, which that is what people say isn't good for your yarn, to have it in that sort of super stretched state for a long period. So what I did was I wound up the skeins the second time, and I left that one after once wound after I wound it just the first time, just to show you the difference. So this is what it looks like in the cake the second time versus the first time. You can see the size difference because this one has a lot more air in it. This one has a lot more air in there, so there's a lot less tension on the yarn, so it's not as tight. It's far more squishy. Let me see, I'll show you. It's far more squishy than this one is. This one squishes a lot more than this one does. It's not as dense. This one squishes down a lot more. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera. This one squishes down a lot more than this one. It's a lot more squishy. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can definitely feel the difference when it's in your hands. So by having it in a skein, in a cake like this, where it's not under too much stress, it should be fine if you don't knit with it for a while. It's not going to affect the yarn negatively. It's still, when looking at it, you can see that, okay, let me see if you can see this on camera. So you can see the yarn in the middle is nice and plump, as the yarn on the outside is. They all look plump, and they don't look like they're under a lot of strain, a lot of tension. When you look at this one, you can see the yarn in the middle is quite plump, but the yarn on the outside is quite stretched out. It looks a lot thinner. If you can see the difference. So on this outer edge here, it's all plump. On this one here, it's all pulled tight. So it looks thinner because all the stretch has been used to get it to wind up tightly. So that's the theory, that's the logic behind it. Hopefully that will help somebody, or some of you, and I now need to wind this up again afterwards. And I want to talk a little bit about ball winders. Again, that's another question I get a lot from people, is what ball winder do you use? So the ball winder that I use is this one. This is my ball winder. This is from Stanwood Needlecraft, and this is, they have 3 options for ball winder. They have what they call, I think it's called the small one, which I've had one of those before, not from Stanwood, but a very similar looking one, and it fell apart. It didn't work very well, so I went for their medium one, which still isn't very expensive. I believe at the time when I purchased this was around $30. So very good value for money. You can either buy it from their website or from Etsy. They have an Etsy store as well. And this just clamps to your table, and you just feed the yarn through like a regular. This is basically a regular ball winder. It's just slightly better quality, and I find it works really well. It gives you really nice cakes. Occasionally I get a cake that pops off, and that's usually because it's quite a slippery yarn, not anything to do with the ball winder. I've had that as an issue before. So this is a medium sized one. And the other thing that I have to show you, which was kind of an acquisition but not mine, is for a friend of mine. I have a friend who's visiting from Dubai who's coming to New York in a couple of weeks, and she's ordered a few things to our place to pick up, and one was the new ball winder. And she bought the jumbo, which is the 3rd size that Stanwood offer. So this is the jumbo ball winder from Stanwood Needlecraft. So it's much more sizable, it's much heavier, and it feels, this is all metal, whereas a lot of this is, the gears and everything in this are plastic, and all the mechanisms, all the parts are plastic. This one, these parts are all metal. The only plastic bits are the cogs and this, the winder part here. So this is how this one works. So you feed the yarn through here and then this one, and it winds around the ball. It gives really beautiful cakes, and again this also clamps the same as the other one to your table. And this is the jumbo ball winder. So this winds really large cakes that are like 8 to 10 ounce skeins. So you're talking 200 to 300 gram skeins of yarn can fit onto here, 250 grams. So I asked my friend if she wanted me to test it out, make sure it was all working before she got here, in case it needed to be returned. And of course she said, go ahead and wind as much yarn as you want with it. And obviously I wanted to test it out, make sure all the parts were working, but then she gave me the go ahead to use it as much as I needed. So of course I took her up on that offer, because if you remember, if you were watching back when I back in January when I went to Vogue Knitting Live, I picked up a couple of skeins of worsted weight yarn from Socks That Rock. They're 100% Targhee base, and to do a sweater with. These skeins are pretty big. They are, I think they were, grab the tag here. They are 8.8 ounce skeins, 250 gram skeins, 563 meters or 616 yards. So there's a lot of yarn in one skein, which my ball winder would not have been able to handle. But the jumbo ball winder handles it perfectly. So I did wind this twice. The first time I wound it, it was about half the size, it was so tight. And then I wound it a second time, so it's nice and squishy and not too dense. Because I have no idea when this sweater is going to be cast on, but because I'm not going to have that ball winder for ages, I wanted to wind up the yarn to have it ready to go. Because otherwise I would have had to hand wind these skeins, which would have taken forever. The second skein, I actually ended up having to wind into two balls, because halfway through the skein was really tangled and I couldn't wind it anymore, so I had to cut it and untangle the skein. But that works out perfectly because this is going to be a sweater, so I've got 2 for the sleeves and 1 for the body. Ta-da! So that's a good chunk of yarn. And again, on that whole winding your skeins twice to allow the yarn to relax. So just wanted to show you those. It's more just prepping for future knitting. Put that away. Alright, so I'm now going to move on to questions and answers. There is a Q&A thread in the group where you can post any questions that you have for me that you might want me to answer. I'd be more than happy to answer those for you. I did actually get a question on YouTube which I wanted to talk about. I don't normally take questions from YouTube to talk about on the podcast, mostly because I just forget to copy them over to my show notes. But there was one from Laurie on YouTube. She says, "Hi Mina, I love your podcasts. I've always wondered if you're Middle Eastern by descent and how you are so fortunate to have had the opportunity to live in such exciting locations." So yes, I am Middle Eastern by descent. My parents are both Iranian, so culturally, hereditary, whatever you want to say, I'm from Iran, but I was born and raised in London, so I guess that's what I would consider home. But I do definitely feel like I would say I'm British Iranian, so I definitely strong associations with Iran as well. I've still got a lot of family there, so I do try to visit whenever I can. And as to how we've had the opportunity to live in so many exciting places, so for those of you who don't know, I have lived in Vancouver, obviously I grew up in London, I've lived in Dubai in the UAE and Bahrain, and now in New York in the US. So I think the biggest reason why we've been so fortunate is, one, we've been open to those opportunities when they've come up. We've not said no just because we were too scared or because we weren't sure or we didn't know how it was going to turn out. We just said, you know what, let's give it a go. We'll see how it turns out. And for the most part, they've been really good experiences. And the second reason was because we weren't looking for them. So we weren't looking for them, and then we also weren't closed to the opportunities when they did turn up. I mean, our move to New York was incredibly risky at the time. I was 7 months pregnant. Perry was still waiting for a confirmed job offer. Like, there was an offer, but it wasn't 100% confirmed at the time. There was still some negotiations around it. And even now, we came here with the idea, knowing that it could be as little as 1 year, or we could end up staying longer. We're still waiting to find out if we're going to be able to stay more than a year. If not, we're probably going to have to leave by March next year if we don't get the visas. So, you know, it's just about taking those risks and not, you know, without necessarily knowing what the outcome is going to be, or you know, sometimes the risks are worth the rewards, and definitely coming here was worth it. But that's not to say that it wasn't stressful or that there wasn't some hiccups along the way. And if you've been watching the podcast for a while and you watched whilst we were going through that move, you will hopefully appreciate how stressful some of those aspects were. Right, and moving on to the next question. So hopefully that answered your question, Laurie. If you have any more, feel free to let me know. The next question is from Sarah DS92 on Ravelry, and she says, "Hi Mina, I have 2 questions for you. I'm visiting New York City this summer, and what should, in your opinion, definitely be on a knitter's to-do list when visiting the city?" So to answer your first question, I would say it depends where in New York City you're coming to and how long you're here for. in terms of knitting related things, the yarn shops I would recommend going to are the Knitting City, which is on the Upper West Side, and it's really easy to get to by subway. All of these are really easy to get to by subway. Pearl Soho, which is down more southern tip of Manhattan in Soho. And if you can get over to Brooklyn, Brooklyn General and Woolen are both really lovely yarn stores to get to as well. Woolen also hosts a weekly knit night on Tuesday evenings, which you can go to if you are in town around then. And yeah, so hopefully that answers that question. Those are basically the main knitting stores that I like to frequent and go to whenever I can if I need something. And so those are the ones I generally recommend to people who ask for recommendations. There are a few others in the city, but those are the ones that I enjoy going to the most. And your second question is, if you could choose one skein of sock yarn to take with you as a memory from New York when you move again, what would it be and why would you choose it? Oh boy, I don't know actually. To be quite honest, quite a good portion of my stash is yarn from New York, because whilst my husband was studying, his clock courses were either in New York or in London. So several times when he came to New York, I would come with him. So I have plenty of purchases that are actually from New York already. So I have a lot of New York themed and based yarns in my stash as it is. But if I was to pick one, I would probably pick one from a New York based dyer who and or a New York themed yarn. So for example, Knitting City have a range of Macintosh yarns that are exclusive to them, which are all New York themed. So they have one which is called Brooklyn Brownstone or Grand Central Ceiling. And there's all sorts of different ones. So maybe something like that, or something from a New York based dyer like Vine, or I think there's another one, Nooch Fiber Arts is also from New York as well. So it'd be something like that. It's really hard for me to say right now. And I already have quite a few yarns from New York, so I really can't pick one, which is really difficult. It's really hard to ask me to choose, because I have so many favourites in my stash. I could never pick one favourite out of the lot. So I'm sorry that wasn't as specific as you were asking for, but I hope that gave you a range or ideas. And Nooch Fiber Arts, if you are looking for a New York themed and based sort of yarn, they are also sold at Knitting City as well. So that's one place you can find that yarn that I'm aware of. Yeah, so that's it for questions. That was the only question in the thread this week. So if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in that thread and I'll be happy to answer them for you on the podcast. And yeah, so that pretty much covers the main content for the podcast. Next up we have the week in review. And Layla is still sleeping. So Layla is my baby girl. If you are new, you may not know this, but she's 18 weeks old now, and we are finally in a good routine. She's learned to put herself to sleep, so she doesn't need us to rock her to sleep anymore, which is great. She's sleeping pretty well now, which is nice, and yeah, she's just at that age now. She's 4 months old. She's at that age now where everything's just really fun with her. She's super happy all the time. She's learning to do new things every day, and it's just really fun to be her parent right now, and yeah, to get to spend my days with her. Sorry, I think the cat's just knocked something over, but okay, I'll check it later. I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, so we got her a jumper in the doorway, which she's loving. She's loving that right now. She's been playing with that quite a bit lately. I posted a couple of videos on Instagram yesterday about that, so you can check that out if you're interested. That's on our, we have a sort of a private Instagram account for where I post mostly things about Layla, which is Philip Family Life. And if you're a knitter, I'm more than happy for you to follow us there. So you can just request to be added and I'll accept the requests. Just on a note on that, I will only accept requests if I can tell that you're a knitter from your profile. If your profile is also private and there's nothing in your profile description that lets me know you're a knitter, then I probably won't add you. I'm just putting that out there right now. It's nothing personal, but if I can't tell that you're a knitter or you're someone I know, I'm not going to add random strangers who I can't tell if they're a knitter or a crafty person. If I can tell from your profile, then I will add you. If I can't, I suggest you send me a message so I know who you are and that you're not some random person trying to look at pictures of my baby. So moving on, doorway jumper, and we also got her a crib, which is currently right here behind me in the living room. Reason for that is it arrived on Wednesday and Perry got too excited and couldn't wait to assemble it, so she assembled it Wednesday night when Layla was already asleep in our room. And then yesterday evening we tried to put it in the bedroom so she could sleep in it last night, but it doesn't fit through the door. So now we have to disassemble it and reassemble it in our bedroom so it can be like put in the right place for her to sleep in. She's not sleeping in a separate room at the moment. We prefer to have her in our room, and actually our room is the furthest away from everything else in the apartment, so it's great because when she's in there she doesn't get bothered by any of the noise in the rest of the apartment. So for now it works well for us to have her in there, which just means that the crib's going to have to be disassembled and relocated over the weekend. But she's been playing in it a lot during the day. I put her in there for a little while each day just so she's getting used to it. It's a massive difference from the bassinet she's in now. It's a lot more space for her, which she needs. She's been doing circles in her bassinet recently and it results in hilarity, to be quite honest. She's still chomping on her hands quite a lot. I've been getting a bit sad lately, looking at like newborn pictures of Layla, being all sad that she's getting so big, and she is getting so big now, but like I said, she's at a really fun age now, and it's really, what should I say? It's just very enjoyable, to put it that way. Perry and I actually had our first social night out without Layla last weekend. We went out Saturday night. I had a friend, Jacqueline, actually came over to babysit Layla whilst we went out for the night. So that was really nice. It was nice to have someone we trusted and knew, keeping an eye on her whilst we were out. And that was really good. We went to a friend's house, they were having a party, and it was just nice to catch up with a few people that we hadn't seen in a while. Then I had a friend of mine, Fran, who was one of my best friends. She's the one who I did her wedding photography for last summer when we were in London, and she was over in the US for a work trip, and she'd managed to wrangle a quick 24-hour stop in New York on her way back to London. So it was so lovely to see her. She's actually the first of my friends back in the UK to meet Layla. So that was really lovely, and I was so happy that she got a chance to stop by and to meet her. I'm just sad she couldn't have stayed any longer. Then Layla and I also went to our first mama and baby music class in the park the other day. I hadn't signed her up to any of these sorts of classes yet because, for one thing, at least in the city anyway, they are quite expensive. And at the moment, up till now, she's been so small that, you know, I don't really see her getting much benefit from it because she's not really able to interact as much. But now she's getting a bit bigger, she's able to interact a little bit more, and I definitely saw that she was enjoying it. So we'll definitely go to more of those, and hopefully towards the end of the summer we'll probably sign her up to some more of those types of classes. It'll be a good way to keep her entertained during the day anyway, to get out of the house and do something. Then, so we have the long weekend coming up for 4th of July. Perry actually has like 3 days off next week, so we've got a nice 5-day weekend. So we're planning to do some things around the city, checking out a couple of museums maybe, and possibly going down to Coney Island or something like that. We're not entirely sure. We still need to plan it out and see what we are going to be able to fit in, but that's the idea so far anyway, to do a few things, get out of the house and enjoy the city. We're not going anywhere this weekend, but next weekend is actually going to be our first weekend away with Layla, first overnight trip away with Layla. We're going to go up to Boston for 3 days. I have a cousin up there. I've talked about this before, like in the podcast a while back now, but we're going to go up there and visit them for the weekend. I figure if we're going to go away for the first time with her, it might be a good idea to go stay with family, so hopefully it won't be as stressful or as difficult for her as being in a hotel, maybe more for us. But we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed it all goes well, and she's much better in the car now, so we're going to be driving up there. Wish us luck. It's like a 4 to 5 hour journey. I'm probably more on the 5 hour side with the baby, possibly even longer depending how often we have to stop. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm really excited to go visit my family. My aunt, who's my cousin's mum, she's actually up there at the moment, and I haven't seen her in a very long time. it must be somewhere between 5 to 8 years ago the last time I saw her, so I'm really looking forward to seeing her again and for her to get to meet Layla. So yeah, and Perry's never been to Boston before either, so it should be fun for us to go and do a bit of sightseeing as well. And so yeah, fingers crossed all goes well. Wish us luck. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. I don't think I have anything else to share with you guys. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, I'm gonna, again, no Layla this week, but if you want to see more of her, there's going to be a little video at the end of this episode. So since she's now 4 months old, and if you guys have been following me on Instagram, you know I do the 1 second every day. I use the 1 second every day app to create like these little video montages for each month. And so now she's 4 months old. I'm going to stick her first 4 months at the end of this episode. So if it's a little 3-minute video. If you guys are interested in seeing that, stick around. If not, thank you for joining me. I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you enjoy the next couple of weeks until the next time I can sit down and chat with you guys, and enjoy the long weekend if you celebrate 4th of July and you have a couple of days off, and if not, have a happy weekend anyway, and I will be back with you guys in a couple of weeks. So take care, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Sure, I knew I was never.
Big stretch.
Yeah.
Oh!
Kicking really hard already.
Yeah.